Hey everyone, my name is Josh House and I'm a guitar maker living in Ontario, Canada. And I want to give you a quick rundown today on how to apply a wipe-on finish using Osmo Oil finishing products. And this is what I use for most of my acoustic guitar necks. And for years now I've been looking for a finish for guitar necks that is easy to apply as well as being very durable, and something that will give a nice matte finish that will stay as a matte finish and not polish up to a gloss. In the past I used True Oil, which is a gunstock oil, and it has excellent durability, but no matter what, even if you rub it out to a steel wool kind of satin sheen, it will still polish up over time with hand use. A couple years ago now, I noticed a few of my friends in the guitar making community using the Osmo products, and I decided to give them a try and have been super happy with the results. And so what you see here is basically everything you need, and this is the quickest and easiest finish that I have ever found out as far as the application and such. So I'm just going to go over the products I'll be using very quickly, and I'm going to start with the oil itself. So what I have here is two of the Osmo products, and this one here is the main one that I use. It's the 3031 Clear Matte Finish, and it is the oil product with a wax component. You can see a little bit of the residue on the top of the lid there. It has a bit of a cloudy look when it's in the can. And so that is what I use for the majority of the finishing. Now the other product I have here is the Clear 1101, and it is the extra thin finish. And what Osmo recommends is when finishing exotic woods that you use this as a base coat, because you can see there it's basically water clear, super thin, and this will absorb evenly on woods that are super dense or oily. Got a little on my finger there, because what happens is if you just use the straight matte finish on certain woods, it will not absorb evenly, and you end up with kind of a streaky or blotchy finish. And I'm not sure that this will show up very well, but what I have here is a piece of Macassar ebony, and see if I can get some light on it there. Okay, so this is the back unfinished side, and then on the front here what I've done is just sample finish with different pore fillers and such. But what you see on this end is this is just the straight 3031 right on top of the ebony, and the dark lines in the ebony did not absorb the finish at the same rate as the rest of the board. It got better down here where I was using CA as a pore filler, but still not great. You can kind of see those lines there. Flip it over to this side, and it's a much more even application, and this is just a single base coat with the clear. I don't believe I actually put the 3031 on top to finish this. It was more just testing the initial absorption, but much more even results. And I recommend that no matter what you're finishing, you do a test. Nice little piece of zirconia here, and this one I've found I can just go straight to the 3031. No need to do the base coat with the other one. It absorbs nice and evenly. And finally here I have a Mahogany Sample. One side has, this side here has a Timbermate pore filler under it, and this side does not. And just the matte finish on this, not using the base coat, and excellent results. So what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to be finishing this guitar neck, and it's for a current build, and I actually have lacquered the front of the peg head to match the lacquer finish on the body. So we're not going to be doing the front of the peg head, but what we do have here is Macassar ebony for the fingerboard, and that shows up along the edge, as well as the heel cap is Macassar ebony. And so what I'm going to do is coat the whole thing in the 1101 water or extra thin clear as a base coat just to make sure I get nice even absorption on the ebony. And then I'm going to follow that up with 3 coats of the matte finish. Now, Osmo recommends different application methods depending on your use, and Osmo is it's a floor finish. So there's the technique that you'd use to apply it to a floor is totally different than what I'm going to do. And what I do is modified, maybe even from what they recommend on their website, just as far as the time and such. So I'm going to wipe on, kind of a wipe on rag application. And what I'm using here for the wipe on is these wipes. Now these are aerospace grade wipes. It's kind of like aerospace grade paper towel. And it is a true lint-free paper towel. So if you're used to using other paper towels and you end up with the lint problems, it's basically not an issue here. This stuff just does not break down. You can't tear it very easily. Looks like I tore a small piece there, but it's much more durable. It holds its shape. It does not break down, and it's an excellent product for finishing. Something else I've found is you can get chemical grade 100% polyester clean room wipes. Used in chemical laboratories, they work well, but this stuff is a lot cheaper. It comes in these nice, it's kind of like an oversized sheet, which I will cut down and use for the application. And I've actually got some here. I usually cut it down into these kind of strips, and I will then fold it over just like this, and that becomes my applicator. Okay, I want to talk just briefly about surface preparation here. So there's 2 different ways I do this on guitar necks. A lot of times I prefer to do it with no pore fill, so just directly onto the wood. I find with the matte finish, it has a bit of a wax component. It actually fills in the pores a bit on its own. It gives a really excellent natural feel to it. If I do want to fill the pores a bit, I will use water-based Timbermate pore filler, and that's what I've done here. There is the Mahogany Timbermate on the neck shaft, and then some of the black on the ebony. This stuff's fairly common. It's cheap, lasts a long time, doesn't spoil. But that's what I'm using. I just applied a single coat the night before, let it dry overnight, and then I sanded back to 320. And the thing to remember, keep in mind with the Osmo, is it's an oil-based finish, and it does at least initially absorb into the wood. It's different than some finishes where you're building up a lot of surface thickness. That's not the case with this. This soaks into the wood, kind of bonds itself to the wood, and so you don't get a lot of thickness. And what it also means is that if you have deep surface scratches, they're really going to show through the finish. So you do want to do a good job with your surface prep. I find sanding to 220 or maybe a bit higher. I kind of like finishing off with 320 tends to be pretty good, just as long as you don't have any stray deeper scratches. But you can sand up higher if you desire. One of the great things about this finish is if you do need to touch up an area or recoat, you can scuff, you can sand it back, and then you can just, because there's no real base layer, it's just the actual finishing products, you can just touch it up and apply it and get a really excellent touch up without kind of any witness lines or those sort of things that you might have to worry about with lacquers or other finishes. So I've sanded this, like I said, I sanded my pore filler back with 320. I've wiped it down. I took a clean cloth. I've wiped all the dust off. So we're ready to go now. And the way the Osmo finish works is you're going to wipe it on and you let it absorb into the wood for a few minutes, and then you come back and you just buff off any excess finish that is excess finish that's still on the surface. And so we've got our 1101, excuse me, water thin finish there. As there isn't really much in this finish, there's not, it doesn't really separate or anything. Still, I think it's a good idea to mix it up. So I take one of my little stir sticks, a tongue depressor is what I have. I just give it a quick stir. You know, make sure there's no visible contaminants in the finish. I'll wipe off the stir stick and I can use it again. Okay, so I've got my my applicator here, and I'm just going to dip that in. Now, because I have lacquer on the front of the headstock, I don't want to get oil all over the front of the headstock, so I'm going to try and be careful about my application here. But I'm just going to go ahead and wipe it on. I just refill the applicator pad, dip it in the oil as often as I need to. You can see a really nice nice finish starting to form there, and this absorbs pretty quickly, the thin stuff. There's not going to be much to buff off, if anything, really, after a couple minutes. But if you're careful with how you apply this, you don't have to do any sanding or anything between coats. You can basically just go right from the rag to the final finish, which is one of the beautiful things about this. So there I've got the finish coming along, and I'm just going to go ahead and finish applying this off camera. Okay, so I have the neck here, which has the thin coat fully applied. It's been sitting now for about 6 to 7 minutes. I find just with the conditions in my shop, it's humidity controlled, it's always pretty warm. I find the temperature, or the time I like to wait between buffing out coats is generally 7 to 8 minutes. But there's just a little bit of excess finish in a few spots. I've taken a clean, lint-free cloth, just another piece of my Sonterra paper towel there, and I'm just giving it a quick buff, making sure I'm getting all the edges, the corners. Need to get down here on the edge of the fretboard. So once I'm done buffing it, I'll now let this dry for minimum of 8, but usually more like 10 hours. So usually if I'm finishing guitar necks, I'll put on a coat when I come into the shop in the morning, and at the end of the day it's usually dry enough for the next coat. And I find, you know, you can handle this a bit if you touch it with your fingers in some spots or something. Just go back and buff that off. Doesn't leave any marks. And it's already really beautiful finish. We just want to build up a little bit of a protective layer with the matte finish, and so we'll be doing that with the next coat. So I'm going to let this dry for the rest of the day, and I'll shoot another video this evening showing the first application of the other matte oil. Just one more quick tip: any of the rags that you use to apply the oil finish, always a good idea just to dispose of those properly. So I start by just spreading out my rags so that they can dry fully before I throw them out. So as with any oil-based finish, take care to dispose of any of the rags properly once you're finished with them.